everyone. We are here today at the Missouri Botanical Garden. It's a hot August day here in St. Louis. We are going to give you a tour of the Kemper Demonstration Gardens. So I'm Christina, and this is Cassidy. And here in the Kemper Gardens, there are about 24 different demonstration gardens. So they're meant to sort of inspire gardeners to show things that you can do at home with your own garden, to see how certain plants grow here in St. Louis, and to see different styles of gardens as well. So we will go ahead and get our tour started. So we are in the very back of the Kemper Gardens right now in an area called the Secret Garden. It's a little bit hidden. Not everyone makes it all the way back here. But right now there's a lot showing off back here, so we wanted to make sure that you could see it, such as this really big showy hibiscus right here. This is a hardy hibiscus. A lot of coneflower you'll see throughout the whole tour today. There's some balloon flower. Looks like passing its peak now maybe, but you can see why it's called that. It's before it opens all the way, it blooms like this and it's full of air in there.
This sort of reminds me of the little origami balloons I used to make when I was in school, where you could fold them over and then you'd have that little place where you could inflate them. I don't know if anybody else ever did that. Maybe it was just me. Yeah, you can see the petals kind of fold over there. And there's the inside. And this is in the bellflower family, Campanulaceae, so it's related to bellflowers. Really pretty purple color on the inside there. And there's a lot of this in the Secret Garden as well, this crepe myrtle. So we have this one here that's this pink color, and it's kind of shorter. And then there's this taller crepe myrtle behind it that has these white flowers to it. And there's also, just looking around here, there's soft pinks and soft purples. So there's a nice little ring of these crepe myrtles here in this area, which is something I'm seeing in a lot of people's home gardens as well. Really likes this summer heat. This is a nice little area that I think a lot of people don't stop in at. All this this big pergola and everything, and this is kind of set up to look like your outdoor patio might at home, with some artificial shade from the structures overhead, but lots of nice airflow. And what you're seeing on display here are a lot of things that people would consider houseplants that have been set outside to take advantage of the summer temperatures. So this is a Schefflera. I always stumble when I say that, an umbrella plant. And here's a philodendron. And so these are things that you might commonly see or think of as indoor plants, but in a place like this where you can set them outside and give them lots of shade, they actually will do really well outside in the summer in the shade. Here's another one, the ZZ plant. It's a very popular indoor plant. And again, taking advantage of those warm summer temperatures without sticking these plants out in the bright sun where they wouldn't do so well. So this is kind of a neat space to sort of see that in action. It's a handful of begonias out here, and some things in the aroid family, alocasia, spathiphyllum, or peace lilies. I believe this is a ficus here.
Here's some more of that crepe myrtle that we were talking about a few minutes ago. You can just see a few of those colors that this occurs in, and these are nice too because these are a shorter growth, so they don't have to be those big sprawling types that we saw back there.
I want to point this out while we're over here. This is something that was installed a little bit ago, called a pocket prairie or a mini meadow. So there's lots of grasses and things that you might find in a natural prairie, but this is actually a cultivated garden that's meant to showcase some of these things. So there's things in here like this coreopsis, and this is just starting to come into bloom. This is an aster, a fall blooming aster. So we have we're getting into that season where the asters start to bloom, and then you have all this grass here, and this is great because it's providing lots of things for pollinators, and also this sort of thick ground cover is nice habitat for little critters, and this is a way that you can take a piece of maybe turf lawn, like you see behind us, which are actually different types of grasses and turf alternatives sectioned out here, so you can see how those different types of grasses grow in the St. Louis area. And this is just another alternative to that, one that you don't have to mow, and that is really appealing for pollinators. So yeah, there's things in here like this is an ornamental onion. It's this is not a native prairie plant, but it does well in this setting. And then I'm not entirely sure what this is, but a nice pretty flower that's part of this mini meadow here. This is one really pretty spot, I think, in the Center for Home Gardening. This is called the Garden for All, and it's designed to bring a lot of the beds and a lot of the plants up off the ground so that they can be more accessible to people of all different abilities as they walk through here. And this is planted out with a lot of really pretty tropical plants, and so it's just bright and vibrant. There's even some citrus tucked in the back here. Maybe some limes or oranges, little oranges. Now these are things that aren't going to be year-round hardy outdoors in St. Louis, so these are likely planted in their pots, and they'll be dug up when it starts to get cool and overwintered somewhere a little bit warmer. This is kind of neat. These are little ornamental peppers, and you can,
all those different colors.
Sort of tucked in here.
Yeah.
My understanding, and I'm not going to test this theory, but my understanding is these little peppers, while they look very pretty, are intensely hot, so they're not something you would grow to make salsa with. And like I said, I'm not about to test that theory. If somebody tells me they're hot, I'll trust them on that one.
And this is lantana. I think that's how you pronounce this. This was a plant of merit this year, one of the varieties of this plant. This is a really popular one that comes in a ton of different really bright colors like this, usually multicolored.
Yeah, and that's actually something that the staff at the here at the Kemper Center for Home Gardening works on every year. Are plants of merit and even some plants of demerit, looking at things that do really well and that they would recommend planting here in St. Louis, and then some things that they would recommend not planting, whether they be invasive or just not going to live up to their full potential. So check out our blog, discoverandshare.org, for that and all kinds of other stories from and about the garden.
This is another really colorful area here. We're entering the vegetable garden, and a lot of these bright flowers that you're seeing are marigolds, adding a lot of color here.
Yeah, and let's actually walk down this way. So we're going to walk down this wood chip path here where there's all these marigolds, and there's actually a little pineapple here growing in a pot. So that's sort of neat. Another one of those things you can grow outside in St. Louis in the summer, but not quite year round. And I thought this was neat. This is one reason I wanted to come down here, is this vertical gardening setup. And you can actually see it's being watered right now with some irrigation, but those are little cherry tomatoes that you can see growing out of this vertical setup along the wall here. I see, let's see.
Those
it
look
looks like
more ornamental peppers.
Yeah, some ornamental peppers, some
sage.
And some marigolds even. So I mean, a really neat set. I see strawberries actually, not in fruit, but I can see the strawberry plant. So lots of different things here that are mounted on this vertical space. And if you can, I don't know how well you can see it, but it is growing. So they're little, it looks like maybe about 6-inch wide shelves almost, with these little packets of soil, and that's what they're growing these things out of. What is this?
It's like rosemary.
Yeah, yeah. So there's rosemary and strawberry and some sage, all kind of growing out of one of those little shelves there. So it's sort of neat if you have a limited amount of outdoor space, but you still want to grow things. It is possible with a setup like vertical gardening to give that a shot. And if you need more information about that, the Kemper Center is a great place to reach out to, email or phone, and ask them your questions about gardening of all orientations, vertical, horizontal, zigzag perhaps.
And right here in the middle are some papaya plants. These are on the central axis by the climatron this year as well, but you can see there's actually quite a bit of fruit on these. right now.
Yeah, loaded with fruit and really interesting
Flowers.
flowers too, really pretty flowers. And it's just sort of a neat. I mean, we've featured a few things so far that can't stay outdoors in St. Louis all year long, but the papaya is one that if you have, especially if you have the ability to bring it indoors and keep it warm over winter, you can roll it out and you get these really big leaves, this nice tropical vibe, and if you like papaya, maybe even some fruit.
Yeah.
By the end of the season.
There's some more of those ornamental peppers too. I like this one a lot because it has all these different colors of pepper all on the same plant. I can't remember exactly what the variety is called, but it's something pretty simple, like 5-color.
And you can see here, I mean, the ornamental peppers here, and then these down here. And I believe this purple plant is actually also an ornamental pepper with really small dark purple peppers.
But the foliage is
and you can
beautiful.
So just to show that they come in all different shapes and sizes. I've actually done these, and I think I've seen them done here as well, in hanging baskets. So a lot of versatility for something that you can drop into a garden and add that nice pop of color. Yeah, here's another variety that's got some purple and green and white variegated leaves, and then has these little dark peppers as well. And back this way is all of the tomatoes that are grown here at the Center for Home Gardening. So there's lots of cherry tomatoes, some bigger ones. I'm not entirely sure what all these different varieties and things are. Here's some tomatillos, actually.
Oh yeah. Look at how many bees there are over here. They are happy right now. Tons of butterflies we're seeing as we walk through here.
Yeah, they really like this sage. Oh, here's a big tiger swallowtail, if we can capture it before it flies off.
A lot of happy pollinators in this area.
Yeah. They got lots of flowers to choose from. So.
Yeah.
Looks like I see some eggplant here. And if the row of sage covered in bees isn't enough of a deterrent, I think it's worth mentioning, as the sign points out here, please don't pick the fruits and vegetables, but please do pick the brains of our Kemper Center staff if you have questions about growing these vegetables. They can help you out. This is some okra here. And I actually see a few different varieties kind of back deeper into
some
that space.
Sort of fatter ones that are a little wider than the kind you buy in the store that looks more like this one right here in front of us. And some more reddish blushed okra as well. Look at all this color here right now. think we point this out every time we do a tour in the Kemper Center, but it's just so cool. These asparagus plants here, which have this really pretty wispy structure, but also if you look at the very bottom here, you can see the stalks that would be harvested much earlier than when they're this big. You gotta get them while they're small. But it's cool to see the plant that some of our common foods come from. Now here in this area is another spot with a ton of color. And just speaking of these as demonstration gardens, one thing this year is this coleus, which you might be familiar with. It's usually green with this reddish color kind of in the center, but this year there are a bunch of varieties of coleus that is pretty much just red, that adds this really dark, intense color. So you can kind of walk through here, look at the variety names. This one's called Color Blaze Rediculus. Kind of pick your favorite. So that's what's great about the demonstration gardens, is opportunities like that where you get to sort of compare and contrast in real life in these settings. And here's another one of these red coleuses. And they're all throughout this area. And speaking of lots of different varieties of the same plant, back here there's a whole row of impatiens in all different colors. These are just exploding right now. Here's another one of those red coleuses, and this one has a interestingly shaped leaf. That's pretty cool. This one's called Color Blaze Royale Cherry Brandy. Look at the flower on this bromeliad.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like hot pink. And even the color of the bromeliad itself is so interesting.
Yeah, a lot of really bright colors in this bed. There's those ornamental peppers again that we've been talking about, and I think each of these beds was designed by a different horticulture staffer, and just kind of trying some different things. So each one put their own little spin on each bed of this design, and they'll be taking a look at how these grow and using that information to inform what we tell others about plants they might want to use in their own gardens.
Near the beginning of this tour, we saw some of the first asters. Here's another sign of late summer, early fall, is these different types of squashes and gourds. On this arbor each year, kind of wind their way up and hang here. It's always a really cool spot in like September and October. It's a little hard to see backlit by the super bright sun and sky today, but in person it's very cool if you're able to come out.
Yeah, and I've noticed they have a lot of beans on these trellises this year, which is a little different. It's usually, I think, more gourd focused, but they're intermixing these different kinds of beans, and I've seen a few different color flowers, different spots along this trellis as we've walked by. So that's sort of a neat way to take something like, beans and gourds and melons are pretty prolific vining plants, and so if you give them the space to grow up, they'll take advantage of it. Oh wow, look at all the yellow.
Yeah.
Lining that path over there. We're walking a little bit of a circle here, but there's just a lot of neat things to show off. We were showing you a balloon flower at the beginning of the tour. This is the unrelated balloon plant. So this is from a completely different botanical family, and makes these really neat little fruits. So the balloons that you're seeing here, where's the balloon flower, that was the flower that was making that little balloon shape. But you can see here, these are the flowers, and then after they flower, you get these neat fruits in the shape of a balloon. There's another swallowtail of, I should know my butterflies better.
And yeah, as Cassidy said, we are kind of walking in a circle, but it just goes to show you, you really can wander around in here and check out all the different sort of nooks and crannies, get lost, see new things on every circle around. There's a lot going on in the Kemper Gardens.
Back to the shade.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yes.
is where we see some of these hostas that are blooming here. There's a handful. I mean, this row has so many different varieties. They all kind of flower at slightly different times.
But yes, they're certainly happier here in the shade on a hot day like today.
we're gonna head towards one last stop on our tour. As we circle back through, I'll point out, if you're wondering what this structure is here in the middle of this garden, that's actually a weather station. So the garden is taking readings on wind speed and precipitation and temperature and logging all that data as a way to help us understand climactic patterns and how those are affecting plants. And that's especially relevant to the garden that is surrounding this the weather station here, because it's a bit of a trial garden that is bringing in a lot of plants that typically don't grow in St. Louis and seeing if they will, if they can thrive here. So the USDA kind of segments the United States into these different growing zones, and St. Louis is somewhere in a 6 to a 7, depending on which part of the region you are. The farther south you go, the bigger the numbers get. And so we have some things here, like this is a spider lily, Tradescantia, that typically grows in zone 10, so should not grow here. And as you can see from this other little addendum to the sign here, it's in its second year. So
it came back.
So it came back.
This wasn't something that was potted and brought inside and returned in the summer.
Right, and it's not just a warm plant. So this is a warm weather plant that made it through a winter, but we also have over here a cold weather plant that made it through the summer. So this is something that is zone 3, and this is its third year that it's been planted here.
And it's even flowering, so it's not too unhappy, even on this hot day.
Yeah, and so this is just a way that the garden is trialing different things to see if they'll make it here. And as you can see, some of them do, and it's actually, as some of the staff have told me, this is a place where plants go to die because they don't all make it, but everyone that does kind of gives us a sense of what may or may not be able to be planted here and planted as more than just an annual. So very neat little space in the garden where there's some active plant science going on as well, to understand how those different plants can handle a climate like St. Louis, because it really is more than many other places. St. Louis is actually sort of a difficult place to grow plants because we have these really hot summers and we have the potential for really cold winters. And so either of those two extremes can really sort of wreak havoc on plants that can't handle a deep cold snap or can't handle a prolonged heat wave. And we're learning a little bit more that some of them can sort of roll with the punches and make it through. So we're going to walk through here. This is a bit of a construction area, but it's actually recently, portions of it have recently reopened. So we're entering a prairie garden here on the southern edge of the Kemper Center for Home Gardening. And they've been doing a lot of work to renovate this space. They're adding in new pathways, new beds, new plantings in phases. And so one of the first phases is done, and you can see some of the new plants that have been dropped into this space. And what they're doing here is showing you on a space like this that is very bright and sunny, kind of taking some of these plants that you would normally find in a prairie setting and trying to organize them in a little bit more of a formalized garden setting. So it's prairie plants, but not necessarily planted as a prairie. And you see some really neat things, like here this butterfly plant. This is a milkweed. And just a few different plants. And this is the first year that a lot of these had been in the ground, so that space is only going to fill in more, and they're not through with the entire renovation yet, so they will be working on the other portions of the garden and getting it all filled out. And then we have here, as we kind of traverse the ecosystems, this here is a glade garden. So we have these big stony outcrops, and there are things like some cacti. This is an American agave. And so we're sort of traversing the different Missouri landscapes from prairie to the rockier, but still really sunny glade type setting. And then what's going to be my favorite on a day like today when we get there is the shade garden, the sort of mini woodland that's off in front of us that we're making our way towards. But we're going to take this little path here, which is also new. Makes it a little bit more, a little easier to get yourself in and amongst the plants that have been put out in this area. Lots of black-eyed Susan. Rudbeckia is the genus.
It's an ornamental onion as well. Zinnias.
Now we're headed into the shade.
Yes.
And this is actually a space, I will enjoy it for the shade that it is providing now. And it's very green under here. But I will say, in terms of flowers, this is definitely a garden space that has a lot to show off in the spring. So there are a lot of understory woodland plants that really shine here earlier in the season, not quite so much at this time of year, but it's a nice place to take a break under the shade of the trees. And there are some things here that aren't necessarily, you wouldn't be looking for flowers on them anyway, like some of these ferns. And this is sort of a neat tree. This is a maple-leaved oak, Quercus acerifolia. So gets its name because they think the leaves look more like maple leaves than oak leaves. This is a tree that some of our staff is actually doing some field work with, trying to locate these plants and safeguard their genetic diversity from the wild. And it's a nice place for one of these trees to be on display here in the Kemper Center.
And from up here, look at that. There's a nice view of that colorful area of the garden that we were walking through just a minute ago, but you can see it up here while standing in the shade, not in the sun. So thanks for coming along with us on our tour today of the Kemper Gardens. Make sure that you stop by this area the next time you visit the garden. It's really a great time of year to visit especially in the Kemper Center right now, is just so colorful and just exploding. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.